This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good day, and welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. ExxonMobil, through its subsidiary, Esso, has submitted an application to the Environmental Protection Agency seeking to develop 3 of its lucrative offshore oil fields in the Stabroek Block. Its 6th project, the Whiptail Development, seeks to produce oil at the Whiptail, Pinktail, and Tilapia fields. In the Oil Giants project summary, available on the EPA's website, it was noted that the operations will add up to 275,000 barrels of oil per day to the current production rates of about 393,000 barrels of oil per day. ExxonMobil hopes to start up the 6th development by the 4th quarter of 2027 or 1st quarter of 2028. It has an expected field life of at least 20 years. The development of the 3 projects under one application means 1 FPSO will be used to develop the 3 fields. This contributes to the reduction of investment or expenditure required in the activities. It also aids in boosting production activities in keeping with the government's plan to accelerate such activities. It must be noted that ExxonMobil is still awaiting the approval of its 5th project, the Uaru Plus development. In other news, Senior Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh recently disclosed that the government is in receipt of a study from Esso regarding the utilization of the nation's gas resources. As the oil company continues its hunt for more sweet crude in the Stabroek Block, Dr. Singh said that the gas resources are increasing. In fact, they have moved from 16 trillion to over 17 trillion standard cubic feet. The gas study is one of the requirements of the petroleum production license awarded for ExxonMobil's Yellowtail project. This study is expected to consider over the short, medium, and long term and a forecast of potential gas production for export from existing oil ships and the expected use that gas will be put to. And moving on, Guyana may not have found the courage to implement windfall taxes on the massive revenues it contributed to ExxonMobil's record earnings last year, but international activists, citizens, and even governments are unwilling to let the oil companies go so easily. Last year, oil profits were reported as the best companies had had in decades, stemming from high demand following the ease of COVID-19 restrictions and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which saw restrictions on the Russian oil economy, the largest crude supplier to Europe until 2021. The Environmental Working Group, a community of 30 million stakeholders working for the protection of the environment, has called on citizens of the world to not let up on their demands from oil companies. The U.S.-based group has in fact criticized big oil companies for fighting windfall taxes intended for them to pay their fair share given the unexpected revenues they would have amassed last year. The group said that the world's largest oil companies raked in roughly $200 billion in global profits in 2022 and will likely be flushed with similar returns this year, even as they fight talk of a windfall profits tax and oppose a plan by U.S. regulators to end gas price gouging. In other news, ExxonMobil is looking to mirror its success in Guyana's oil and gas sector in India's upstream sector. This was disclosed by Monty Dobson, lead country manager for South Asia at ExxonMobil, during an interview with Entertainment Tonight. The energy giant's affiliate, Esso, is the operator with 45% interest of Guyana's lucrative Stabroek Block, which is 6.6 million acres and has over 11 billion proven barrels of oil. Notably, the Stabroek Block production sharing agreement Guyana signed onto with Exxon has been labeled as lopsided. Under the deal, Exxon only pays Guyana a mere 2% royalty, enjoys massive tax breaks, and there is also the absence of a ring-fencing provision. While persons like the Vice President Bharat Jagdeo and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal have acknowledged Guyana has signed on to a lopsided deal, the PPP government refuses to renegotiate the contract and continues to allow the oil giant to rush full speed ahead with its crude extraction. And now let's tell you, murder accused Asdino Bowen, who was on remand at the Mazaruni prison for murder, was on Friday placed on $750,000 bail by High Court Judge Simone Morris Ramlal. The accused was represented by attorney-at-law Dexter Todd and associates. Todd said that Bowen's case represents the second time in Guyana's history that the murder accused is granted bail. Bowen was arrested and charged with murder committed on Linden businesswoman Siobhan Gordon. Particulars of the charge allege that on April 4, 2015, he murdered Gordon during the course or furtherance of a robbery. Meanwhile, 19-year-old Marlena Emtage was on Friday sentenced to 4 years in jail and fined $53.1 million after some 59 kilograms of marijuana she had claimed belonged to Roy Anthony Charles, better known as Skittle, was found in her Norton Street, Georgetown home. Skittle was shot 12 times on January 9th while walking along Durban Street with a friend. The suspect in his murder had emerged from a silver car bearing a fake license plate and riddled him with bullets. The Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit had issued a wanted bulletin for Emtage and two others, Tyreek Gentle and Yvette Robinson, after Rangs found 3 bags of ganja in her Norton Street home. Emtage took full responsibility of the narcotics, and as such, Magistrate Daly withdrew charges laid against Robinson and Gentle. While the two were freed, Emtage was sentenced to 4 years in jail and ordered to pay a $53 million fine. She claimed she was paid $100,000 to keep the drugs. And now let's tell you, 2 men were on Friday remanded to prison for the double murder of 68-year-old Subnath Budraj and his wife 60-year-old Saraswati Devi Budraj, which occurred at Yakusari South Blackbush Polder Berbice on Tuesday, January 17th. The duo, 22-year-old Hari Chan Prasad and 27-year-old Emmanuel Whittington, made their first appearance at the Albion Magistrates Court. The men were not required to enter a plea and were remanded to prison until February 7th, when the matter will be called at the Mibikuri Magistrates Court. The Budrajes, who owned an off-licensed liquor, beverage, and grocery shop, were found dead in the bottom flat of their home with multiple injuries about their bodies. Their 2-story concrete home was partially destroyed by fire. And to wrap things up, the Guyana Revenue Authority on Friday said that it has taken stern disciplinary actions, including the dismissal of employees, after it recently uncovered a number of fraudulent practices involving persons applying for various categories of licenses. In an effort to prevent such practices, the authority is cautioning members of the general public against colluding with individuals, including GRA officers, to perpetuate fraud in the course of completing a transaction, the authorities said in a statement. The requirements to obtain licenses are listed on GRA's website at www.gra.gov.ui or requested via WhatsApp numbers 707-9841 or 707-9842. And that does it for your news at noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's Newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.